Welcome to the Sporting Chance. This podcast is brought to you by Midnight Falconry, makers of high-quality falconry leashes and jesses. Check them out at midnightfalconry.com. Ashley Clark Falconry, the highest quality leather falconry equipment, handmade in England, built to last and looks damn good while you're at it. Check them out at aclarkfalconry.co.uk. Be sure and use the code SportingChance10 at checkout. North Mountain Goshawks. Seth Roy is breeding high-quality, true parent-reared goshawks in addition to imprint goshawks on order. Check him out at northmountaingoshawks.com. Yeah, we're not trying to make any friends here. On that note, welcome everyone to the Sporting Chance podcast. I'm Aaron Kincaid.
I'm your co-host, Casey Everett.
And we're joined today by the great Paul Eliya out of New Jersey.
Hey, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you.
For coming on.
Yeah.
So our subject today is trapping birds of prey. We want to add a note that you should not attempt to trap a bird of prey unless you have a license to do it.
100%. Fully licensed, bonded, and insured. Don't attempt this.
Now, having said that, let's talk about some trapping.
Yeah, so we invited Paul on. He's a he's a close friend of mine personally, and not only just the fact that he's a friend of mine, he's extremely knowledgeable in pretty much all areas of falconry, and he has a great deal of experience and insight into trapping, all different kinds of trapping that's not done in the majority of the country and the world, like beach trapping. That's a pretty unique subject. And also ridge trapping, finding nests, finding new ridges, new spots. There's a lot of information that we could cover with Paul. But let's get Paul. Why don't you just tell us, just like, you don't have to rush through it, but just a little bit about your background, how you got into falconry, how long, all that stuff. But you don't.
Okay. Yeah, I just get for anyone who most people probably won't know me, but just been a falconer since I think 1999. Was always interested in falconry. Looked at as a child looking up interesting topics in the library. I picked up falconry books at one time, read them, just put it away, not thinking that it was anything that I actually do and where I was growing up in northern New Jersey. But my brother picked up the interest. We both ended up getting licensed right after college in 1999 by the same sponsor, Teddy Moritz. And so, that's it. I did some little bit of hunting, small game hunting, stock pheasant here in New Jersey. We pretty much only have stock pheasant. So I did like small game hunting with family members. And that was my level of hunting experience. Loved fishing and everything else outdoors as well. But yeah, and then they got into falconry and been with a bird or multiple birds ever since. So I can't believe it's basically 25 years now, but feels like it's just yesterday.
You and Casey met fairly early on in your falconry.
Yeah. It was I'm not sure what year, but
I taught them everything they know.
Yeah. I think me and my brother, like we hit the ground running. We were very active and just did as much and everything we could do falconry, right? I mean, we were both single guys. We were no longer spending all of our extra time and preparing for wrestling. We used to both competitively wrestle at the college level, but once that was over, what else is there to do, right? We didn't have families or wives yet, so it was falconry, full speed ahead. I guess I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 years into it, and then
that was 2006, right? Or I think 2005. I think I went out with you guys, and I kind of hung around because my license is from 2006. So, but I definitely, I was kind of floating around.
Yeah, before you got a license, I
was around for a while.
You reached out to us. We had you over, talked to your mom about everything that's involved. Tried to dissuade you from just getting a license because we knew that it was a lot to. You need to get to a field. You need to get to do this. You need somebody to whatever. But
it's a lot.
You were persistent. You got the dog. You got a puppy off of one of the litters I had. I think maybe one of the first litters.
It was from Aziz.
Yeah, Aziz von
And
Moritz, which
Abby,
is a dog
yep,
we got from Teddy, and the bitch was Nissa
yes, yeah, I
von
remember.
Moritz as well. So two of Teddy's dogs that I had, we've been running, me and my brother Phil, and we bred them. And you got one off the first litter, Abby, and she's what happened?
She's still
what's
alive.
she's
She's
still
still alive. She was at my house. My mom. She's retired with my mom now, and my mom,
yeah,
helps us out with the kids. So she brings the dogs over to mingle with my dogs. And Abby's, I think she's like 18 now, and she's still kicking, wander. I mean, she's a little blind and deaf, but she wanders around. She goes up, she stands at the stairs and barks to get taken up. Like she's still
yeah,
with it. I mean, it's getting close. It's getting
yeah.
close now.
That's the thing with
It's getting
dachshunds. I
close.
mean, usually a long-term commitment. They're one of those breeds that live a long time, and hopefully nothing happens. And in between that, you can actually get a good number of years from a dachshund too, as far as like,
I didn't realize that, to be honest, when I got him, because it's
yeah,
it's a purebred dog, and always purebreds tend to not live as long as like the mutts and stuff like that for whatever reason. And yeah, she's still she's still going. Like I mean, she's
yeah,
obviously not hunting anymore, but she can walk and move of her own power. She can use the bathroom on her own. There's you can say
yeah.
her name. She'll kind of look in your direction. Okay, I want to go.
Uh,
I want to go back though. I want to go back
oh
real
yeah,
quick. Not really like a super in-depth or interesting thing, but I have to know because I've never really asked you guys this. So with being two wrestlers, you were college level, and Phil, your brother, my sponsor,
yeah,
was D1 level. So in falconry, like there had to have been some level of was there a level of competition between you two to like do better, or was it always just like you're on the same team and you're gonna make it happen together? Or was there like when you went
yeah.
to the
So
field? Go ahead. Yeah, tell us about that a little bit. There's got to be something.
yeah, definitely. So yeah, we've still, my brother's is a couple grades ahead of me. So when I was wrestling in high school, I was a sophomore and Phil was a senior. And one of my first cousins. I was also on the team, so we had three Elias on the team. And yeah, we drove each other. We just, Phil was kind of always paving the way a little bit. He got ahead of me, so he was on the wrestling team. I saw him on the wrestling team when I was younger, and like, oh, I'm gonna go wrestle too. So he decided to, work on getting that falconry license, and I got the falconry license also. So it was kind of always is more motivating each other.
Right.
Then when he got to college wrestling, and I was still in high school, he was supporting me, helping me, get better. And so it was more of, we would feed off each other, not really just try
That's
to keep
good.
pushing ourselves to kind of do better. And him going ahead of me, I was always to see what he did and just do it better. So
That's awesome. Yeah, that's good. Okay, that's a good one. Yeah.
nah, I mean he did. Yeah, he did great. So
So if Phil caught three in the field, and he came home that night, and you went over and you asked him how his hunt was. The next day you
yeah.
went out. You wouldn't try to
Well,
catch. You
we
wouldn't
like
try
I
to
said,
catch
we did
four.
everything. We would do everything together. So just ask him. You know,
Okay.
what who was flying his first red tail when it caught its first rabbit, and
Right.
ask him his first goshawk when it caught its first rabbit, who was flying it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it'll point back to me. But again, we shared in a lot of those things, and whatever he caught my first bird,
Yeah.
yeah, I was at work and he's like, I'm gonna go out trapping, and he's like, I got you a bird. So
That's
like,
awesome.
and I was there to help him got his first bird when he wasn't there. Like, so it was just like we did everything that way, just to kind of keep helping each other and always motivating. So it's
That's
not,
great. Yeah, that's
yeah,
good.
nothing, all positive.
So,
Good.
Paul,
Yeah.
who's better, you or Phil?
In what?
Oh my God! Here we go.
Who's a better
Yeah.
falconer, you or Phil?
Oh boy. Oh yeah, I don't know about that.
Oh my God!
I
They have
wouldn't
they
say,
do they do definitely help each other. I will say, after
yeah,
knowing them for so
yeah.
long. But
Because the definition of a good falconer means there's lots of different things.
Yeah.
Um, but Phil has an amazing way to kind of get whatever he can out of whatever bird he's dealing with. So he's a better problem solver in that regard. I would probably say, I don't know. I'm just more of a guy just kind of keep doing stuff, like keep pushing and pushing until it either works or it doesn't, and move on from there. Or Phil will just keep trying to figure something out, and and somehow gets to come together when you least expect it. So
Sounds like he's better.
yeah, maybe that's what I mean.
So were you with Casey when he trapped his first red tail?
Of course not.
No,
No, no. You got here. We taught you how to catch a bird. Go catch it. No, it was Casey was, again, he's like, just like us in that regard. Like I can't wait around. I'm gonna do it, and wasn't gonna wait for his sponsors to find time to take him. Gave him guidance and as best he could. But if he had an opportunity to go out, I think he went out with his brother and called me up and
yeah,
said, "We got the bird." And I'm like, "All right, bring it over." I was like, "Great," and we help him dress it up and handle it and go from there. But
oh
what
yeah,
were
I
we,
remember that.
15, or I don't even know how old you were.
It was probably 2006. I'm 33 now, so I don't know. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
probably like 13, 14, something like that, maybe 15. But yeah, it was like the first bird we saw. It was pouring rain. I got my license in the mail, and I immediately like ran to my brother's room because he had a driver's license and I didn't. And I said, "Do we have to go trapping?" And we drove. It was pouring rain, and we went to this local spot by our house. First bird we saw, there was literally there was this. It was a cemetery, and they were literally lowering somebody into the ground, like
Oh my gosh.
right around the corner. And there was this big juvie sitting on this pine tree. And I held out. I laid outside the door, like as we were rolling by, and I dropped the trap, and I didn't even get the door closed. Pro tip: never slam the door after you drop the trap. But anyway, and the thing my brother's, he's like, it's on it literally left the tree and came down to grab the trap, like before I could even get back in the car. Like
Wow.
that's how, and we just turned around, like it was already stuck, like before we could even turn the car around. I braided like a million nooses on top of this thing, and, and I jumped out of the car, and my brother he shielded me with the car. It was just like a smash and grab, and then I don't even think I got the hood on his head. I just put a
I think you
towel
came
his head.
over wrapping a towel or something, and
In a
just all of
towel,
a sudden
yeah.
wrapping a towel at the head.
And I was shaking. My hands were shaking,
Yeah.
and it was in your
That's
basement,
great.
I think.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it came to my basement. Yep. It was that was great. That was good.
Yeah.
It's just, the same thing. Like, whatever. The first BC we used and whatnot was ridiculous. I can't even imagine it worked. Yeah, it was just like, just go do it and figure it out.
Yeah.
And,
Get it done.
yeah.
So we all used a BC for our first trap, I'm assuming.
Most
I
people
used
probably.
the BC. Yeah, I used the
too.
BC and a harness, pigeon harness. I think I used also my first year, second year.
So for
Yeah.
anyone who's listening who doesn't know what a BC is, it's a bow shot tree. And I think it started in India.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's basically a wire dome that, well, as far as what we use is a wire dome, like a little wire cage covered with little fishing line nooses on the outside. And you stick a rodent inside the wire dome and you set it out. Once you spot the hawk you want, and the hawk, comes down and hits it and hopefully gets caught, and you come in as quick as you can with a towel and cover it up and go from there.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Because what I always did, and I don't know, I think one of, either Paul or Phil or somebody told me, I put different sizes on my traps. So I would put like the big ones, like big open loops standing straight up, and then I would do like smaller ones, like half the size, sporadically throughout. Do you guys do that too?
You know what? For me, it ends up being random size because I'm not meticulous about it, and you know what I mean. So I'm just tying them off, and some are big, some are small. So it ends up being kind of random for me.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
You guys you're using fishing line. Well, I think it's last time I haven't tied one in a while, but I think I was using 50-pound test, right, or 25-pound.
I don't use 50. I just want to get 20 to 30, depending. It's been a while since I tied one. I just don't. I don't do a lot of BC or road trapping much anymore. At least not as much as I do using on the beach or on a ridge trap site. So, but 30-pound test, 30-pound test, a stiffer mono tied around the wire as tight with like a clinch knot, and try to get it to stand up as best as possible. I actually prefer them over some of the like the steel leader type
Like the
nooses.
spider wire stuff.
Yeah, I mean those I've used them. They've worked. They work fine. But you just tie a lot of monofilament, and then after a while they fall down. They don't stand up straight anymore. Just you cut the old ones off and tie new ones on after a season or two. It's no big deal. I just feel like they close a lot easier, just a higher catch rate. But
I've seen people put little clear beads on the nooses to hold them open.
I think I've seen that too. Yeah.
that's interesting. I don't know.
It's like
Why
a
would that
weight.
do-
It's a weight on the noose side, on like the loop side, and it like
Oh, so that they sag open.
it sags it back open. Yeah.
Okay.
I use the green stuff too. I get like it's like darker and green. I don't use like the clear blue stuff.
Yeah,
'cause
yeah. I don't. The clear. There's some mono that stands out in the sun like crazy. So
Yeah.
definitely want to get a low vis one. It's there's greens, there's browns, there's all kinds of colors. But yeah, I stay away from the bright white ones. But if it's all you have and whatever, just use it. But all depends on how eager the bird is. And another thing is, I don't like making that dome not too big is better.
Yeah.
Because the big dome puts everything, the nooses, everything further away from the mouse or something. So like I don't know, it's just a little bit, depending on what you want there. I mean, you can catch them on anything depending on the bird, but in
Yeah.
general, sometimes you have shy birds, especially like if you're trying to catch a kestrel or something else. If it's a dome and it's 6 inches above the mouse that's in the bottom, they're not going to try to get through the wire as easily, or the nooses, or I don't know what it is, but if that wire is flat and it's just just above the size of the mouse and the gerbil, they're going to just figure out, I'll just foot right through it and just grab the mouse. Like it's almost like it's nothing. So I don't know. It's just one of the things I do.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's a good pro tip. Also, I have had rats chew the knot of the noose inside of the trap. You guys ever do a double dome? I've done that before.
No.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. Personally,
You do? Okay. I don't know. Me personally is I don't put the bait in the trap until I see the bird and I'm ready to drop it. And then when it comes back in the car, I take it out and I put it in a holding can, because that way there's no real time to worry about them chewing the nooses. The second thing is they're inquisitive and they're moving around. If they get used to that BC, it's like their little cage. You throw it out there, they sit in the corner. That
true.
road sits in the corner. It's like it's home to them. They've been in there for hours or a day, and so it goes in its little carrier. And when I see it, I just open the door in the bottom, put the gerbil or mice in it, close it up, and that thing's walking around, trying to understand where it's at. And
That's
then
a
when
good
it
point.
doesn't, and so it doesn't have a chance to chew it, I don't have to worry about putting a double dome, because now there's more things in between the bird and the bait, and the bait is more active. So that's what
good.
I've done. It's just what's worked for me. But
if I think they're getting too comfortable, I'll mist them with a little spray bottle.
yeah, see, I mean, you got to do something, right? Gerbils are good. Gerbils are better baits than
Yeah. So what kind of bait do you guys use?
I've used everything from something dead to a mouse to a sparrow to a rat to gerbils to a pigeon, dove. It depends. But generally, if I was going to say we're going to go look for red-tailed hawks, I would assume the same thing for harrises or anything other larger. I would ideally have a gerbil because they're more active. But I wouldn't shy away from using mice or a small rat or anything else either. But sparrows, I've even used sparrows. But yeah, it all depends on what you're looking for.
It's nowadays it's hard to get your hands on a good gerbil. If you go into those pet stores, man, they look at you. They look at you all kinds of sideways now, and they want to know what you're doing with it, and why.
Well, they're not a few bucks anymore either.
No, they used to be like $5. Now they're like $23, and you have to sign like a waiver that you're gonna like care for it correctly.
Yeah,
I feel like such a freak when I walk into the pet store.
You and two other disheveled dude in Carhartts going in there.
Yeah,
where are your gerbils?
You know what's funny is I've had the girls ask me, they're like, what size tank do you have for this? And I go, oh, it's 55 gallon. Got a wheel on one end, and they go, you got to watch out for the wire wheels. Oh, it's not a wire wheel, it's solid plastic. That way their feet don't get caught up in it.
Oh, right.
He knows exactly what to say, this guy. It's good.
Meanwhile,
No,
bullets the whole time.
I went in. Yeah, I went like maybe 5-6 years ago. I went in. Yeah, I had to sign all this paperwork, and it was like this whole ordeal to get a gerbil. I remember they had like this whole form at Petco you had to fill out and sign, and like sign your life away. You had to show an ID and stuff. I'm like, holy crap, man, this is getting crazy.
Yeah.
But gerbils work the best because they move. But I definitely think that wild, like if you could get your hands on like wild rats or mice, dude, those suckers do not want to be out in the open. And when you drop that trap, they're scurrying all around that trap, trying to get to cover, and they don't stop moving.
I've heard that birds are bad bait for red tails. They say that the red tails know at that point they're probably not going to be able to catch the bird, so they don't mess with it. What do you guys think?
I've tried.
Caught them on pigeons. Catch them on pigeons all the time. I don't know. But birds in the BC is tough. I mean, I've only done it because I had to, and I didn't have anything else. And there's a red tail in the backyard, so I'll just grab one of my doves and put it in the BC or whatever else. But yeah, I don't know. It's not ideal bait, I don't think.
No, but if it's flopping around in a stationary area, it's going to stimulate them to be like, why is this thing stuck? You know what I mean? I mean that's a great segue into ridge trapping because you're catching all your red tails and everything else under the sun with a pigeon up on the ridge, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Point.
Oh yeah. I've lured them in with starlings, with doves, or pigeon, but primarily the pigeon in the bow net or a large mist net.
Okay.
Or dogaza.
Okay. We have a lot here to cover. So why don't we start from like square one? How does one find a ridge or an area to trap? Could you just go to a baseball field and set up a lure pole, pigeon, bow net? Like, why would you or would you not?
I'll be honest with you. Okay, so I'm speaking from like East Coast perspective. I really only thing I know about ridge trapping on the West Coast is what I've read and what I've talked to, like Bruce Hawk and some other gentlemen that I've spoke to that ridge trap out west, which is a little bit different. But in general, on the East Coast, the birds are migrating south, and you could on a good day put a net out anywhere in the open, and if it's a good migration anywhere on the eastern coast, you can catch a bird. So people are always hesitant to say, where, how do you find the location? You could catch a bird anywhere when it's a good migration day. They're moving. They're not always at the congregation points, but to increase your chances and to put yourself in the best opportunity to succeed, you want to go where they congregate. And if you look, I mean, I don't think any of this is anybody who's read a little bit about the subject knows that the birds like to migrate south during the fall, but they will congregate above ridges where there's an updraft. So the mountains on the east coast of the United States, from a general perspective, run north from northeast to southwest. The Appalachian ridges. Some of the mountains, some of the ridges are north to south, and even in some parts they do go east to west. But essentially, the winds and a northwest wind with usually comes with our cold fronts here and will drive directly perpendicular to a ridge that's running from the northeast to the southwest. So a northwest wind would hit that wind and give it the most updraft.
Okay.
And so as the birds trickle down south, they feel that updraft and they can feel it in the wind, and they'll congregate over those ridges because it's the easiest way to fly south. So it just carries them forward. But again, they're not every bird's doing that. I mean, they're filtering down, feeding in the valleys and crossing over fields and roosting in random spots as they move south. But if you look at, I mean, for me to pick out where I'm going to go, there's a couple things. I mean, the beach trapping is one, but let's say on the ridge is you want to find an elevated place where you can actually set up a net that has a clear view, ideally out to the direct, like north and west, right?
Okay.
Depending on the way the opening is, you want it on the north and west. Now, even on a southwest wind, you can get a decent updraft on the south side of a ridge because they'll kind of like, depending on the direction of the wind, If it's straight north, they're going to run right down the middle of the ridge, and
Right.
they're going to fall off to either side. They could be on the right side, the left side. So if your trapping site doesn't have a good view from all sides, you're going to be very specific on the wind.
Okay. So you're trying to
'cause they're
get
gonna just fall off.
higher. You're trying to get altitude a little bit.
Yeah,
And
you basically want a good lookup, and if you look at topography maps on let's say the Google Maps, go to topography view or topology view, you could see the shapes of the mountains. All right, and so what I do is I look at the mountains, ones that are accessible, and you see the shape of them, right? And you want one that has a decent amount of length to it. It could be just a small outcropping or just like a pyramid shaped mountain that sticks straight up. You could go up there and try to catch some birds, but ideally a ridge is like a mountain that's long, right? So that has a couple miles, 3, 4, 5, 10 miles, 30 miles of mountain that's all kind of one ridge, right? So it's
okay.
like a big ripple in the earth. Because the longer that ridge is ahead of you, the more time it gives the birds to congregate over that ridge over top. If you're just
Got
on
it.
a mountain that's straight up, like just picture like a pyramid shaped mountain, you're not going to have birds keeping a line. You'll be out there and be visible to any bird that's around in the area, but you're not going to have a consistent flow of bird in a certain direction. So the shape of the
Got it.
mountain help.
And
So that's I
birds,
would look on those. I'm sorry, Aaron. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I would guess the birds real far away probably aren't going to put forth the effort to come after a flailing pigeon.
Yeah. Listen,
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, we like to say like if you catch a 1 out of 10, you're good because and there are some days you're going to catch 3 or 4, or you're going to see one, you're going to catch one, or you're going to catch every other one, or you're going to see 30 or 40 and not catch one. So it all depends. I mean, there's a lot that happens on those depending on what's going on in the day. And
What's been your best day of ridge trapping?
best in terms of what, just numbers,
Yeah, numbers.
a couple dozen maybe, but it's probably a mixture of birds. I would say
Yeah. So
red
what kind
tails.
of
My good red tail days for us is, I mean, like, I don't know, like 14, 15, I think.
Okay.
But
That's way more than you'll get driving around town or the country.
Yeah.
yeah,
Probably.
yeah, no, but you have days you catch none. When we time it so that we go on good days and we have well prepared sites. When I go, depending on the weather and the time of year, I'm expecting to catch some red tails. And if you hit those good days in a good spot, a couple red tails that, each outing is typical. Later in the season, you get mixtures of, adults and immature birds. But
So when are you seeing
there's some
most
guys that
immature
catch them.
birds?
Like there's some spots that are really good for red tails, and like there's some. So I would say, all right, if I'm going to look at different ridge spots, I probably trapped physically have been on one, two, hold on a second, maybe 6 different mountains at some point, 6 or 7 different, and that's from states from Mass, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Those are the only places I've been on mountain ridges, been trapped. So just to give you kind of like, I primarily trap in a couple spots, and when I also say trap, I do some banding as well. And so the banding we do, for research purposes, and Jim Yosin has the banding license, and we've accompanied him and Rick Sliker at their banding stations to help do some banding. It's a great reason to do some, trapping, get out there and enjoy the birds, and measure their wing cords, and put the rings on, bands on them, and send them on their way. So it's a lot of fun, and I know a lot of falconers do that as well.
That's awesome.
But
Now I have to ask, if you are in a banding situation like that and a beautiful female goshawk comes right into the net, what are the chances of you guys putting a band on it and sending it on its way? Because I know that.
it all depends on where we're trapping, if it's legal,
Okay. Right.
and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
depends on who's with you, right?
Passage female
Yeah.
goshawks are hard to come by, at least for us,
Yeah.
and it is our primary target for them. So we try to trap, and fortunately, New York State allows us to to trap, non-residents to trap passage goshawks. Pennsylvania recently, I think, made it illegal. So yeah, there's.
So how many of those have you caught?
That was my question.
That was my question.
How many have I personally caught?
Between you
Not a
and
whole
Phil.
lot. Yeah, between me and my brother, not a lot. I wouldn't know. Females, 6
Just in
maybe.
general, the goshawks in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah, 6. I mean, it's like you never know. It's hit or miss. You might go 3. So we might go 3 seasons not catch a goshawk, and then sometimes we catch 2 or 3 or 4 in a season or in a day. But
Or 3 in
our
one day.
best days. Yeah, I mean it's possible. It happens, or we go 2, 3, 4 years without catching any. Yeah, like it's been a little while, and fortunately, like in falconry, friends putting the word out that you're looking for a passage female goshawk with close friends. So what we'll do on a good day that we think it's coming up is we'll divide and conquer, and
Okay.
because we have a couple different mountains that we can hit that we've tried just to spread our luck out, and that's what we'll do. So I'll cover one. Bill might go to another ridge. A couple other friends that will go cover their regular spot, and just hope for the best. So that's
Yeah.
kind of what we do. And so, but that's kind of what
That's
we're looking
awesome.
for. We catch cheersoles. I mean, the one time we caught. I mean, some spots are not great for goshawks. And I've caught the one spot, and we go in Jersey that a lot of the Jersey falconers have gone to now over the years. I think Bill Miller originally found that spot, and I think we were a couple of years into falconry, and our friend Jim Yosin and a couple of the guys were using it also. Again, found it just like I described it. His sponsor, Jim, at the time, tell him look for a northwest opening and on a clear top, and this spot's great for that. There is actually a hawk watch like further up the ridge, so it's nice to have a spot there because even when we're not there, there's hawk watchers like I don't know, like a mile or two down the road up on the ridge, all doing counting for us, so they can kind of give us an idea what it was like when we weren't there. And so we that spot is great. We catch lots of Cooper's hawks and red-tailed hawks, and you catch pretty much everything there at some level. Out of all the years of trapping there, it's been an active spot. Trap people, falconers. We've been using it for whatever 20 something years now, and before that, it's probably used for another 10 years before that by Bill and Jim and Rick Sliker. We've only ever caught goshawks there in one day. And it was the two in one day. And I think Casey, you were with us.
I thought it was 3.
That day was 2. The third one was hanging right over the net.
Oh, there was 3, right?
Yeah.
I remember that. Weren't they
Phil,
Kearsarge?
Phil, a few years back caught 3 or 4 passage goshawks in one day. But that was,
man.
but again, we caught 2 goshawks, almost caught the third that day. Every other day we've trapped there, and we've trapped hundreds and maybe thousands of birds on that spot, and haven't gotten another goshawk there.
Wow.
But meanwhile, there's other spots that we work where we trap, and they produce at a higher rate. Never, it's never a shoot with a goshawk.
Why do you think that? Why do you think it's like higher at a different area compared to another? If they're all
the theories we've had is that this spot that we hunt is actually like a mode, is a plowed field on top of a mountain. It's agricultural and it's wide open. It makes great spots for pulling in birds that are all over the ridge. But if goshawks that are maybe hunting the wood line or whatnot that are off to the side, I don't know. We're really not sure why.
right.
I don't even see them there very often, let alone catch them.
That's the spot that has the built-in the club, and like you guys all got permission from like the state or something to build that permanent location.
We have
right?
a permanent structure there. Yeah, it's a blind there, and it was privately owned property. Town owned it, then the state eventually owned it, and the state has kind of grandfathered us in to allow us to continue trapping there.
Yeah.
So it's been an active spot with a blind. This is, I think, the third blind. The second one I've built, the third one that's been there, been 30 something years now.
It's like trapping in luxury. It's like you got one-way glass, a bench, like all the built-in.
You can literally drive up, park your car right near where we set up, and there's no walk. You just come in there, hook your pigeon on the line, and stake the bow net out, and you're
You're good
trapping.
to, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's good when you want to bring kids up, or you want to bring either, even falconers in their later years that maybe don't want to hike up mountains and stuff. It's a great spot for that. Yeah, it's we love it up there.
Yeah, I trapped my best red tail I ever had on that spot. And just a quick story. It's fun. So I was there. We were all there. It's very rare that anyone leaves to go get food or lunch, but for whatever reason on this day it was slow. So I think it was like me and Paul's cousin Matt, and everybody else went to town to get food. And we're just sitting there and we're flipping for red tails and stuff. And there was this bird, like Aaron, like we were talking earlier. This thing was all the way out there. And I just flipped, and then you just see it. It just like freezes in the air. It's just a speck all the way out, like horizontally all the way out. And then the speck's not moving, and you're flipping and waiting. And then every couple seconds, you're kind of flipping again. And then you just see the speck is getting bigger and bigger, coming right towards us. And then what's great about the red spots, like just for a visual, is when those red tails come in, we call it the landing gear. They drop their legs, and they're completely tucked, and their legs are just hanging, and they're just coming in full speed. They usually do like a little maneuver around the actual lure pole and then smack the pigeon. So this one's same thing, legs hanging down, smacks the pigeon. I didn't even know what I was doing, really. And I pulled the line in and then pulled the other string, and the bow net flipped. And we ran out there, and me and Matt grabbed it. I don't know. I think it was just me and Matt. Yeah, we hooded it up, and then we waited for everyone to come back. And that bird ended up flying at like 1500 plus grams. It was a huge, giant female.
Yeah.
And it was like, I had her for 8 years. She was a great bird. And yeah, it was just so funny whenever we came back, and it was like a slow day, and they're like, oh, anything? And we're like, we got this one. And they're like, oh my God, you just see the feet on this thing. It was awesome. Great spot. A lot of fun.
So many great memories trapping, because it's that anticipation of what could be, and the potential that you're holding in your hands when you get a new bird. That's what I love. Yeah, it's great. It's a great thing that we can do in this country. And, fortunately, New Jersey's for falconry is a great state for trapping birds and getting birds.
Don't say that too loud.
Yeah, but it's got its limitations. A lot of limitations on like the type of falconry you could do, the game, and the crowdedness of everything. But as far as a state for being a lot of the East Coast states too, but New Jersey is just is one of those good states for trapping migratory birds that are either on the beach or on the ridge. So anyway, looking for a ridge spot. I used topology, looked over openings. That's how I caught my first goshawk. It was really just scoping it out, and then came back on a good day where I thought the weather would be good. Threw up a mist net, and I had one mist net, and just said, let me just try it out. I didn't want to see. I didn't know how the birds are going to migrate in this spot, like what direction they're going to take exactly, and just to feel it out. And I just made a makeshift trapping. So I put a pop up line, pigeons, and one mist net. Just trying to keep it simple. Tied my lure line onto the end of a snag out in the distance, and I've told the story before, but it's I'll never forget it, because at that point we'd never had our hands on a goshawk, let alone you know even seen one hunt or do anything. It's just I knew they existed. you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I tried the spot. It was a good day for eagles and some red tails, but nothing was coming in. Eventually, think I caught one red tail, and it was an adult. I let it go, just kind of test the setup. When you're in a new spot, it's almost like you discover a new hunting field, and you're catching something there, or you found a great fishing spot, and you catch your first fish in that spot that you didn't even know existed. I don't know how to describe it, but like just to find a random spot and catch a bird there is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Like nobody showed you it, and you had no idea. Like literally, we just looking for mountains, and something that's accessible by car, and then that I can walk to and hike it. And I found a place where there's enough view of the sky that I thought I could catch a bird there. All of a sudden, I see a bird coming down. We just seen, like I said, eagles going by, red-tailed hawk after red-tailed hawk, just kind of migrating. Not many were paying attention to me. They were just kind of like ignoring me and the pigeon. All of a sudden, one bird comes down. It wasn't even up high. I saw it last second, and it kind of flew between the mist net and me and the blind, like just a few feet away. But it turned broadside and I could tell right away that this was a goshawk because just that striking coloration. People think from a distance they look like it's a Cooper's hawk or a goshawk. You're not really it can't be when goshawks almost their chest almost looks like black and white checkered, right? And they have that
Right.
just a bigger size. When you see them up close, there's no mistaking them for anything else other than a goshawk. And I knew it was a goshawk. And it grabbed my pigeon, went around my mist net, grabbed the pigeon. I was super excited just to see the goshawk in person. And then all of a sudden a red tail came in after it and bumped it off the pigeon. And then it started just going right downwind, downstream, down the ridge. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. I yelled at the red-tailed hawk. I put my head out of the blind and I shoot it off the pigeon. The red-tail looked at me and then bolted. And then I looked at the goshawk and it was flying down, but then all of a sudden it turned its head around, looked back, and saw the pigeon back there, and it swung back around and it landed on a snag like straight out in front of me. I would say like I don't know, 50 yards out. And I was like, wow. So I was, zipped up in my see-through blind, like the shoot-through windows that are like mesh.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can he see me? Can he not see me? I'm sitting here. I'm like scared stiff. Like I don't want to scare this goshawk. And I had the pigeon down there, and if he just flew right towards me, he would just grab the pigeon and wouldn't hit the mist net. The mist net was like not in line of where the bird was going to fly in. So I was like, whatever. I wasn't prepared to really catch. I was just trying to test the spot and see where the birds were going to do this time. But sure enough, after a while, it felt like an eternity. This goshawk dropped off the branch and starts gliding in towards me. And I'm like, oh my God, it's going to come in. It's going to come in. So I thought maybe it's going to grab the pigeon. I was going to sneak out and maybe try to scare it into the mist net, something. But either way, I got another chance at this bird. And it comes in and it's going to come right in for the pigeon. It's going to miss the mist net. But at the last minute, it tried to sideswipe the pigeon. So it banked hard right and then tried to nail the pigeon, and it banked right into the mist net. And it was like, and it was flopping around. If you know mist nets, they have these like shells basically, and it was in the sack, and it was just like kind of moving along in the mist net. I thought I was going to lose it. I jump out of that pop-up line, and it's a rocky, sloped area, and I'm tripping and falling. I bent my mist net holes. My shirt is snagging the mist net. I probably ripped holes in it in the mist net, and I just basically tackled that bird in that mist net. I didn't want to get any chance. It was chittering. It was flipping out. I couldn't believe I even had it. And then so I socked it up, and I couldn't. I sat there for like 10 minutes trying to keep trapping. I was like, I couldn't do it.
No.
So I was too excited to get out of there, and I got that bird, brought it home, talked to Phil, our first goshawk, and it was.
I got goosebumps.
Phil's bird, dude, it was crazy. So I caught a goshawk. We just literally we'd been talking about it, thinking about it, trying different spots, looked at different spots. I went up there on a whim. Phil was out of town. I said I took off of work. It was snowing that day, and it was an early November days, up on the mountain by myself, not know what I'm doing. And sure enough, it started snowing, and then this goshawk came in. And,
oh my God!
That was it, man. That was the first goshawk we ever hawked with, and eventually, I think I caught a rabbit with it first head of game, and it was probably a month out after we trapped it. And, it was a lot of fun. It was great. It was
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's a great story. Yeah, you had a how many tiercels have you? You said you had one bird in particular that was a tiercel that was like your best passage.
My best passage was this female that I let go last year.
Right.
13 seasons I had her, but that was a very good male. Yeah, that was a very good male goshawk, that first one. But I mean, we could talk stories about that bird, but it taught us a lot. Some of those birds are very hard to train. Some of them train very well. It's really hit or miss. I've had some that are completely, nearly impossible to train, and it's not just me. And I've even tried them in other people's hands. Same bird, they hit a wall, and they get like to a certain stare, and they will not even a live bunny on
the
a string.
Stare. The stare.
Yeah.
I found that with Cooper's hawks. I haven't flown many goshawks.
Yeah, it can happen to some passage goshawk, and some will train like a red-tailed hawk and follow you and kill right away and be no problems. And
now, do you think that has to do with the personality of the bird, or do you think that there's some underlying? Because like people will talk about this, right? About going up to Minnesota, going up like real high up north, and they trap these. I mean, Brittany comes to mind. She had that goshawk that it just came down like nothing. It was
Yeah.
super calm. I think I was with
Yeah.
her and it caught its first rabbit. And it was like the first rabbit it saw. It just rocketed off the glove with 5 people in the field and just smoked this rabbit. It didn't have a care in the world about anything. And then there's other people that have some, like you were talking about, it's a common thing where they just, after like a couple weeks of training, they just shut down. And whether they're getting sick or they just stress out or they won't continue with the training. Do you think that that has something to do with maybe an experience with humans, and then maybe ones like possibly Brittany's have and other birds like that? Like maybe it's a possibility that they've never had any possible interaction with a human, and you're basically the first human that it's ever seen.
I understand what you're saying, but it's so because of the nature of the passage goshawks and where they come from. It's so hard to make that correlation, and not knowing what their experiences were beforehand. I truly believe, based on imprint goshawks, I know people with captive bred birds, even though I've never flown a captive bred gosh, but and the passage birds that I've flown, the goshawks, inherent, I would call personality or nature or traits or whatever within genetic traits within those birds make a difference. I mean,
Okay.
that's. I
I
mean,
got a great idea for episode.
yeah.
Passage
Okay.
goshawks.
Inherent
So
traits.
yeah. I mean, there are birds, and all your birds. I mean, some will train well. You could train them all the exact same way, and you're going to have different successes or different, behavior. So they're not completely blank slates that you can mold them to be exactly what you want them to be. They're just not.
Okay.
I don't know, but I mean, good falconers can work with all different, types of birds, and that's, I think, what makes you a better falconer is if you can handle birds that are more challenging or have different traits. I mean, just taking one sample size and doing well with a red-tailed hawk or a passage goshawk doesn't make anybody, the expert on any of that, because being able to handle various birds that various personalities,
Yeah.
and overcoming those challenges is really a testament to the quality of the falconer, I believe. And you know what, maybe we just need to become better falconers, because there's a percentage of passage goshawks that we've just let go. They're just
Yeah.
we can't get around to it. It's like we can't get them to get
Okay.
any better. And then some of our passage goshawks, great, and some of them in between where they're just they're difficult. And then after by the second season, they're excellent. Like my the passage I had for 13 years, she was tough for that first year. I mean, we did well. We caught ducks, rabbits, and I think squirrels our first year, but she took off on me in the beginning a bunch of times where I'd have to track her down miles, you know.
Oh wow.
Uh, but by the second season, she was following me around like a red-tailed hawk.
So now between you and Phil, how many passage goshawks have you guys flown? 'Cause I don't even think I know that number.
I don't know that number. Um,
Okay. All right.
I would say, I don't know, dozen, mm,
Okay. That's
maybe more. I mean, as far as flown for multiple seasons, not that many, because sometimes, like I said, we catch one, try it out, and and you might let it go, or it might die of asper, or So did I fly that bird? Yeah, I had it, and it died
right.
of asper. I trapped one, and and then I trapped another. Kept it for a little while. I kept the one and let the other one go, or I hit a wall with it and I just let it go, or I gave it to another falcon. So yeah, I mean, going through our hands over the years, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, probably 15, 20. I mean, but
Jeez.
actually, we've flown for a while. Yeah, I mean,
That's a that's a
Casey,
lot of birds.
we've been falconers for well, it's like
No, I
Phil's a
know
falconer for
that.
25 years. That's 25 seasons, and I'm a falconer for 25 seasons. So we've been doing goshawks for the last 20, 18, 20 years
Yeah, but that's a
each.
lot of
So
goshawks. That's a lot of experience that you guys have. I'm more or less.
yeah.
I honestly didn't really know the number. I knew it was up there, but I'm setting
No,
that up
yeah,
just
it's not that, like I said, those are how many birds we've handled. I would say actually, sat down and trained, somewhere in the teens,
okay.
or teens maybe.
And have you guys, just a random question just popped in my head. Do you guys have ever gone on any like Western trapping trips? I know Brian Bradley, he used to go out there on like these crazy excursions. Have you guys ever done anything like that? I know it's a little off topic.
Yeah, we trapped out west a couple times.
What
Just
states have you been to, Paul? to trap?
Uh, no, yeah. So we've only on our trips out west when we went to Texas and Kansas.
Oh,
So those are
okay.
the states we trapped
I've
in.
trapped in Kansas before. What were you after out there?
Black goshawks. I mean, black goshawks, black red-tailed hawks.
I think we're all interested.
Yeah.
Those are
Black
those are in Africa, and they're $15,000.
You know
I already
what?
looked
We
it
were
up.
just like, we had been flying red-tailed hawks at the time, and we are like, hey, we're out here. Let's try something different. So we had trapped. We're looking for dark phase or Harlan's red-tailed hawks, and we did catch them. I think we had
You
on a
did?
trip with each.
You actually did catch some?
Yeah. We brought one or two back. I think one the 1 year. Brian also was trapping with us out there, and then he went back on his own once or twice more and brought back another dark phase or a Harlan's. That one male Harlan's we had, it was like a Harlan's or a Harlan's integrate or whatever. It was all black and had some interesting looking tail, but
It was useless.
no, this one was
You
an
guys,
awesome bird.
no, you guys gave me. Oh, that one Phil flew. Yes, but you guys gave me
That's
one.
the first one.
You gave me one as like a joke or something to work with, and it had like feet the size of a. You remember that thing? You gave it to. As
That
like
was, I don't think I thought that was from Brian.
it was from Brian, and it had feet like it had feet like
Listen,
the size.
man.
Dude, that thing was like a piece of garbage.
You're like a 1,000 miles away from where this thing came from.
Yeah, I know.
Go get yourself another black red tail.
Dude, you keep going black. Yeah. No, speaking of black goshawks, I've already looked into it. There was only, last I heard, there was 12 imported in the country about 25 years ago. There may be one or two left, and they're roughly $15,000 each. And
the African.
yeah, it's an African black sparrowhawk, but yeah, they're essentially a black goshawk. They're super cool. But so you're not making stuff up. But yeah, no, Phil had a dark morph tearsole, and that was one of the most spectacular birds I've ever seen.
red-tailed hawk to fly, especially when we're not used to these. I guess these western birds like to soar a lot more, but soaring above these trees where we're hunting was always dangerous, but it was very spectacular. A lot of aerial flights. He was a small bird and caught rabbits out here. Obviously did ignored all squirrels, but having a bird that was like just soaring above you and diving through trees, or even when it took a perch, it would like be at the tippy top of the biggest oaks and stuff. So it was always fun to fly. Anyway,
when I was out there, I was after the Crider's red tails, the white ones.
Yes. Yep.
Man, I found those things were so spooky out there. Like you couldn't get anywhere near them with the trap. They were gone.
My friend Brian did get one of those. He did.
Did you find the same thing with that?
We didn't see any where we were at in Kansas at the time. Anything that looked like that ended up being a rough-legged hawk or something. We had caught too many rough-legged hawks trying to get these dark and different colored red tails. So not knowing what we're looking at from a distance, a dark hawk.
It was so weird. You start to slow down at all, that bird's gone. It was so strange.
Really.
Yeah, one of my friends that lived out there at the time, he's since moved. He was telling me about trapping a pure white Crider's red tail, and he said he threw the trap, the BC out in the field, and the bird wouldn't come to it. So he was like, so I just said, fuck it, I'll go get a coffee. So he went and was gone for about 30 minutes and came back.
That's not good.
He came back and he said the bird was dragging the BC across the field.
Oh my God.
He just walked out there and got it. But that's definitely not what you want to do. You don't want to leave a trap unattended because
no,
who knows what could happen. But yeah, he actually got it. I've been to Arizona to trap Harris hawks. Paul, have you?
Never.
Did you trap any of those in Texas?
No, I never. No, we were in the Amarillo area.
Okay.
But, yeah, no, never.
That was very foreign concept for us on the East Coast, and it was expensive. It was probably more expensive than buying a Harris hawk, but I had always heard that the wild Harris hawks were like a different species, than a captive born one, being like their behavior is totally different. And I found that to be true, and not always in the best case. I still have a couple, but they have gotten increasingly, neurotic, hard to deal with. Just really.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah, just really difficult birds. they don't want to be on the glove. You can open the box, they'll fly out of the box and they'll fly back in the box, but don't touch them. They'll do the crap. You walk up on the kill and they'll jump off of a rabbit and the rabbit runs away. It's just
Yeah.
it definitely wasn't worth the trip other than the experience of trapping them.
The experience is always what makes it worth it. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. The first time I went out there, me and my sponsor hooked up with falconers out there. They just gave us some spots and we went and we were like, this feels just so weird. Like this feels like a waste. Like we just drove 30 hours for nothing. And then when we get to the areas where they said there's going to be Harris hawks, suddenly you see 10, 12 Harris hawks sitting around.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
And then you'll look down in the mesquite bushes and you'll see dark shapes, and those are the young ones.
Wow.
And so
what are they doing in there?
They're just laying low, hanging out while the adults are up higher.
That's interesting.
So we threw the trap. It was BC with 2 gerbils in it. The very first time we ever threw a trap for a Harris hawk, we had 2 of them on it. And
oh my God.
I took the female and my sponsor took the male. And then I went back the next year because that first year with her was awesome. She was just an incredible bird. She was like super gamey. She didn't have the annoying tendencies of captive Harris hawks. She would fly down rabbits from hundreds of yards away. She was just everything you could ever want in a bird. So next year I went back with one of my other friends, and we had some luck catching males, and we were looking for females. Looking back, I should have just caught a male and brought him back, but we were hell bent on finding females. So we hooked up with another falconer out there, Bob Carson. He graciously showed us some spots. We found a spot, we threw a trap, and we pulled 5 males off of 1 BC at the same time.
Oh, that's insane. That's insane. That's insane.
My buddy was hungover, and we did this in somebody's neighborhood, so he was so sick. He was so hungover. As we're pulling the Harris hawks off the BC, he's puking his guts out.
Oh gosh.
And like there's a lady there that lived right beside the spot. She was standing in her yard watching us. Like, not only are we weird for pulling these hawks, off a trap, he's standing there puking his guts out.
Oh,
and like God. he does it like 3 or 4 times, just throwing up, walking back to the truck, throwing up. And so I walk up to her house and say, hey, we're licensed to trap these birds. We entered a lottery to do it. And I hope you don't mind. And thank you for, tolerating us being near your house. And she was perfectly fine with it. She was cool. But nice. Yeah, it was a weird experience trapping those, much different from anything on the East Coast.
Yeah, I would imagine. Sounds like
that's a great story. How did you figure out which one you wanted to keep out of all those birds?
So out of all those birds, they were all males. We didn't want any of them.
I don't blame you.
There was a guy there who wanted one, so we helped a local falconer, and then we just kept looking. And the female that I kept was beside a diner in a giant eucalyptus tree. I think I made a huge mistake by taking that bird because, one, she's a Harris hawk. And 2, the thing out there is it's warm all year, so I think they breed all year. So you don't know how old the bird is that you're trapping. So if you trap a red tail in October here, when it was born if it was a juvenile.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Out there, I think I might trap this bird right out of the nest. Because this bird was like everything you want out of a wild Harris hawk. This bird was none of those things.
Interesting.
Yeah,
screams. She's still around, actually. She's the only wild Harris hawk I've ever heard that'll vocalize. So you wouldn't know she's wild the way she acts.
Okay. Huh.
So I'm done with that chapter.
Well, you did it at least. You had the opportunity. Yeah. That was good.
I'm proud of you.
So much so that when my sponsor that went with me, I think I'm going to let him release at least one of those birds back to the wild.
Yeah,
release them both.
He's going to Arizona for a wedding, so I think I might send the first one I trapped back with him. The second one is kind of the cross that I bear because she got a toe bitten off by a squirrel.
Ooh.
I'd feel really crappy just releasing her back to the wild. So I think I need to deal with her.
All right. So
that's, in my opinion, if you trap a bird and something happens to it, you got to take some responsibility for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So if it comes down with an illness, you need to treat the illness. If it loses a toe, that might be your bird or for the rest of its life, or you might need to find it a nice old lady who wants a pet Harris hawk.
You think that Harris Hawk that was behind that diner? You think she was getting scraps out of that dumpster? Paul's, Paul's got a great story about Harris Hawk eating chicken bones at a dumpster.
I swear to God, no. Paul
I
does?
told that story too.
Oh, it's a great story.
Okay,
It's so
because I got a story about him eating out of a dumpster too.
no way.
Oh, really? It sounds like a
yeah.
I will say that for another time. I think
we're out rabbit hawking, and my birds disappear, and they're in a dumpster eating food. They're cropping up in a dumpster.
yeah.
Paul.
Mine would fly. Oh my gosh! This one spot in Western Jersey. We used to always hunt. It was a great spot for rabbits, and it was behind a pizza place, a little restaurant. And we were hunting the field. We're hunting. There's rabbits running all over, and we go over there. She is in the dumpster with like steak trimmings or whatever it was, like pieces of steak, and she's eating it. And I'm like, what? I'm like cursing at her. You know what the? So I picked her up. That bird from that day on would find whatever green big dumpster she could find, and she would fly. Like we were working one field. I remember she crossed like a big 4-lane highway, and she's disappearing. Where is she going? There's a strip mall in the back there on the other side of this highway. I could barely see. I'm talking hundreds of yards away, and maybe at this point it's 1,000 yards away. I could barely see where she went. I go there, she's in the dumpster. I see her one time. She killed a starling, ate a dead starling out of the dumpster. I don't know if it was dead or she caught it in there. Chicken drumsticks out of another dumpster. This is the same bird that would take, capture dog toys off the porch of somebody's house.
Oh my God!
Have it. I mean, you fly her. It was 25 degrees out. She's sitting there tucked up underneath the house, literally by the front door on the little rocking chair. I'm like, where's this bird? We're hawking. She's with her foot tucked. She's up under the porch of a porch on the chair.
I'm literally dying of laughter right now.
At that point, that Harris Hawk was gone. I got rid of that Harris Hawk.
That's so funny.
That was the last Harris Hawk I flew. I remember flying her. She disappear. I'm like, where's she going? Right toward the highway. In New Jersey. We were hunting off a field. She's gone. I was like, what Harris Hawks just take off on people? They usually don't, right? They usually follow well, chase well, they hunt well. This thing took off, and I'm like, where is it going? I'm like, I'm sure enough. I know exactly where she's going. There's a Wendy's right by the highway, and sure enough, I get in my car. I drove over there. I get there, and she's in the back, right behind the Wendy's. It's not even in eyesight. I don't know how she even saw it. From where she was, but she gets up in a tree. She
just looks for restaurant chain signs. And just
you know what it is that the Harris Hawk are too smart. I think
they're
in the right place, in the right hands, they're excellent birds. But just for me and for where I hunt, we're not a good mix.
I don't think there's a better bird for working really tight little urban spots than a Harris Hawk. The only issue is they've got a propensity to get hurt and to get into trouble because they don't care about humans or man-made stuff at all.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
All right. Now enough about
beach trapping.
Beach trapping. Yeah.
Beach trapping. Yeah. So it's just another form of trapping, and an area that the birds migrate, and I don't know, just kind of again, where do you go? You can go where others have found success, and where there's other bird watch sites, and where there's a good migration point that's well known, and try to find areas nearby. But really, it doesn't have to be as to find your own spot that's suitable, that's away from everybody else. I mean, you just got to look at the terrain and where you're at. And if you actually took a flat map of the United States, right? Just picture like a big flat map, right? Okay. It's just the United States, and then sprinkle it all with BBs all at the top, up in up in the Canada area, and then just picture, and then you tilt it up, and you see all those BBs would roll straight down. But as you picture them roll down, they can't cross large bodies of water like the ocean. Right, so they come straight down out of Canada, and then they hit areas like in the Great Lakes where they have to go around the Great Lakes, or they're going to go and they're going to hit parts of Maine, and you can see the angle of that. If they were going straight south, they'd go right into the Atlantic Ocean, so they hug the coast.
Oh,
So
got it.
as they all trickle down from the top from Canada on down, look at barriers that will obstruct their way, right? And so on the coast, in the East Coast, it's the whole East Coast, but there's parts of like New Jersey and Virginia and Delaware and Maryland and the Carolinas where the coast is like completely vertical, right?
Okay.
And so, what if you're looking down that part of the geography? What's going to make those birds congregate onto that little strip of beach that's there? Not much if it's facing perfectly north and south, and there's no other reason for them to be pushed over there unless it's a strong west wind, right? So as
Right.
the birds move south, there's a tendency for the wind to push certain birds.
So
Um,
are you
to the
waiting for a
coast.
west wind to set up on the beach?
For certain birds, yeah, certain
Okay.
birds like fat peregrines like to be out on the well more of a tendency to fly over large bodies of water, and they'll fly out. They'll be 10 miles offshore, whatever, and just they don't really need to be that close. So sometimes a south wind or a southeast wind will hold up peregrines and even other falcons on the easterly winds, some merlins as well. But generally, everything but peregrines, you're looking for west and northwest winds.
West and north,
Um,
but okay, something that's gonna keep.
yeah,
Okay.
but
Okay.
peregrines kind of the opposite.
Peregrines they'll fly through the night sometimes, correct?
Yeah, and the peregrines, that's what I've heard.
That's
I
super
noticed that
fascinating to me.
you find them. I know even with merlins, I've seen them flying in complete darkness.
Wow.
So it's like, and it's different. The birds get up early, they look to hunt, and then they migrate through the day, and then they look to hunt at the end of the day. So anyway, as you're looking for a spot, kind of look at your terrain and understand that when they hit the coast, they're going to not want to generally go over the ocean or a huge, large body of water. And so you pick a spot that has a good view of the birds. That's in a safe area to hunt. You'll generally, on a good day, during the right time of year, you'll have opportunities to catch birds. So again,
That's good.
I've only trapped on the coast in a couple different states, and never down south, but just comparing notes to fellow falconers down there in the Carolinas or in Florida. It seems very similar.
And it's on the beach, and I know when we go, you're using mist nets, maybe a pop-up line, maybe not even, just sitting on the
Yeah.
ground. Like, it
Yep.
seems like a different kind of, it's like trapping, but on vacation, literally, because you're at the beach, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, it's like I mean, we've trapped them standing there just drinking something and just watching them go into the net. Like, it's like it's a completely
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
atmosphere.
Generally, yeah. It's a lot of times that, especially for Merlins, they don't seem to really need to have the concealment of a blind, and I'll just trap. We just sit out, and that's the people that taught me how to trap on the beach. We're doing that. You don't need to pop a blind. We just sit down here. You can put your back up against the grass or something, but the Merlins are just going to whip by and go right in there.
They're
Now,
gonna
if you're
try
in
it.
an area, yeah, they're
Go
just
ahead.
going to come in and try to grab the bird and go. Right?
Yeah, so that's why they're less concerned, because they're planning to eat on the wing while they migrate, more than likely.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
it's interesting. But I mean, listen, if and you're in an area where you might not only see one Merlin or two, and you don't want to risk you shooing them off. You might want the blind. The other thing with the blind is it restricts your vision. So
Yeah.
you may lose an opportunity because of the blind that you might not have had if you had a clear open sky ahead of you, above your head, and looking in all directions. So yeah, it's a personal preference on that. Yeah, set up a mist net in a V is the simplest formation, or you can use a dogaza in a little V formation and put the bait bird in the middle. That's essentially it. And we flip. I usually use, if I'm looking for Merlins, I use ringneck dove,
Why
and
is
and then
that? Good size for him.
yeah, I like that for a good size to attract. You can get a good height on a flip, and it's big enough to attract them from a distance. And then I usually have like I call the kicker, right? So we main bird, and then there's a kicker, and the kicker is usually like a sparrow or a starling. You can't lure a sparrow real high in the sky, and then it's really difficult to do that. So if you have a bird that's low and far out and how's it going to see your little sparrow that's on a 3-foot pole or 4-foot pole, right? So I can take a collared dove and flap that thing up, 5, 6, 7, 8 feet in the air and flap down and get that bird to turn. And once it's coming in, I have my little sparrow on a small pole, and I just get it to just flutter, above the ground, just get the flutter, and that bird a lot of times will switch off that dove onto the smaller bird.
Wow. Okay.
Um,
That's
yeah.
so you're using the dove to flag the bird that's far out to turn it.
Yeah.
And then once
Yep.
it's turning and it's locked in, now you're switching over to the smaller prey item.
Yeah, I just
really
find that you
stimulate them.
don't always have to, but it's also instead of you have less of a chance of the bird wanting to check off a dove. I mean, like you'll catch them coming straight in on a dove, and if I just had doves, I would still go. But these are captive bred collared doves, not mourning doves or anything else that's illegal. But and then English sparrows or European starlings. But those are the birds I primarily use. And it's a good size if you in case if you have the permit or the permission to catch passage peregrines, that was a
Yeah.
good size for that as well. So it serves two
And how are you
purposes.
getting those doves?
I keep them year round.
Did you
So
trap them initially?
no, they don't live native like wild around here. They're all captive bred. You buy them
Don't
from a
they have
pet
those
store.
invasive? I think they're invasive in
They're
parts of the
invasive in
country.
parts of the West. I don't know that them in living anywhere in the East Coast wild.
Yeah.
So I have them from breeders and I just keep them for ourselves. We keep them year round. It's like I said, trapping on the beach is important to us, so that I keep feed and breed doves year round, just so I don't have to chase them down every year and make sure I always have them. So
That's a smart idea. Now, something that we glossed over in the beginning, that I meant to bring up, but then we started telling funny stories about Harris Hawks. But it'll wrap everything up a little bit because they're very similar from what I've seen. Now, we glossed over it. A lot of people that are hearing us talk about this stuff, they may not have any clue what you're talking about when you're saying a lure pole and flashing and all these different things. So can you just, like, I know without having the string and everything in your hand or drawing a diagram for people to see, it's going to be hard to describe. But could you just describe, like, roughly what you're referring to when you say you have a lure pole and a pigeon, or a lure pole and a dove for flashing? Like, it's a catapult
so-
system that's being launched up in the air through two different ropes. Like, can you explain that? Just I don't know
just
how
take
you explain it.
yeah. So picture your misnets or your dogazas set up in like a V formation, and I put the pole in the middle between them. That's high, high enough that I tie a string to that, like a good strong, non-stretchy string. That's a kind of a thin diameter. So like, kite line or a heavy, like a strong, like low stretch Dacron, dark colored one, or duck decoy line that's tough and durable, but like kind of camo or dark.
Okay.
And then I let the string down to near like about 6 inches or a foot longer than the height of the pole. I put a swivel there or a snap clip, and that's where I have a harness that holds my bait bird, and then I run that line straight. So it's just one line tied to the top of the pole.
Okay.
A certain length down, a little bit longer than the length of the pole is the snap clip, and then the line runs to my blind or to where I'm sitting on the sand, and that's pretty much it. And
So
then
you're
so
basically
when I say flip, it's
Yep.
really pulling that string, and when you make the string taut, you're shortening the distance, and the line comes tight. It's pulling that bird off the ground and getting to go up in the air and creating a fluttering motion. And then I just kind of like make sure it lays, hits the ground, not too hard. I clear the area. I mean, when you have mist nets, you have to, and even dogazas, you want all the grass and the branches all low around there, so it doesn't
Yeah.
tangle in the wind. You don't want to tangle up your net
It'd be a
in the
mess.
grass. Yeah, and so
Hey,
yeah,
Casey,
Yeah.
before we started recording, you started to tell me a story about you clearing brush or clearing grass.
Yeah. So when I was the apprentice, we used to go up to the blind to get everything set up. And earlier on in the season, it was always, the grass was continuously growing, especially in a couple of the, like, the pre-existing spots we have. And as the apprentice, this has probably changed nowadays with how things have been going. But anyway, I was I was forced I had to do all the grunt work. So Phil would give me, or Paul would give me this what was it? It was like a grass whip, you called it?
Yeah, weed whip.
A weed whip, and it was like this
Before weed whackers were invented,
yeah, it was like this medieval torture device that, and I would basically have to whip it back and forth through like the knee high grass for like an hour until I was like sweating and my shoulders were on fire to clear all the grass around the whole perimeter of the area, so that when we were flashing, the pigeon was clearly visible, everything was visible, and nothing would get snagged. That was just a fond memory I had of being an apprentice.
That's how you treat an apprentice right there.
I think they still make me do it though when I go up. So
once an apprentice, always an apprentice.
Listen, it's nothing I would, listen, there's a lot of work that goes into where we trap. It's like even now we have to go back up to a spot where we do some banding and like rebuild that blind and reset stuff. Like it's just a lot of work. And then we've had our friends Jim and Rick who've been up there before. Just to get it to where it is right now has been a lot of work. It's been clearing back brush. They were hauling up plywood. This is a hike too, it's and it's clearing brush, bringing mulch in, just to create a level surface. Like it's there's a lot of work. Cutting back trees, building blind. We built 3 different blinds now, and it just doesn't all happen. It's when an apprentice comes and just shows up and gets the bird and goes home. They don't necessarily get to appreciate all the work that got into the point where it made it easy for you just to show up, hook a pigeon, and get a bird to go home with. Right? It was a lot to get to that point. So and to keep it maintained, it just takes a little bit of work. And anyway, it's all worth doing though.
Yeah, the beach is a little easier, obviously, because of where you're at. But you'd be surprised how much vegetation and stuff accumulates in certain locations that you set up in. It's like there's like this low moss. Really, it grabs everything, grabs the string. There's like little trees and branches. Like you really got to clear it, because when you have that bird in the air and you got lines getting caught. Oh my! I mean, there's nothing more frustrating when a bird is like, what the hell is going on down there? And the bird's like the bait bird's hanging upside down. Like it just can become a nightmare. So you got to set the right stage for what you're trying to do. Yeah, that's good.
So generally the beach spots that I've trapped on the East Coast, I've been in 3 different states where I've done it. You generally want areas where it's not just, I don't know, at least of the places where I've been, you're near like some kind of vegetation, where there's at least some sand dunes and grass, at least where we've trapped.
Okay, so it's a backdrop.
Not only that, there is, but it's like there's life, right? There's small birds and things that the Merlins are hunting. I generally go to the beach to trap falcons, right? So I'm going there, and I'm not going there to trap red-tailed hawks and Cooper's hawks and sharp-shinned hawks, but generally peregrines and Merlins, because everything else I can trap other spots. And the beach takes a couple hour ride for me to get to, or an hour and a half. Some spots to 3 hours. But anyway, so like an estuary type area, where there's marshland and stuff like that. Anything along those lines that those are places that the Merlins are going to naturally want to go. If you have miles of open sand dunes and breakers, and there's no other reason for the bird to really be there other than being forced to be there. But it's generally going to seek areas where it can either roost, land, or hunt from.
Right.
So I like those estuaries, those small birds, those are reasons that the Merlins would be there. They could be right near, like right on the main, on the ocean, but they can also be near an inland bay or estuary, marshland too.
Okay. They want to maximize your success by getting to where you're assuming they're going to feed from. And I know
I'm not sitting out there, in the bare
umbrella.
Sand.
Right.
Yeah, no. I'm sitting where there's sand dunes that have vegetation on them, and there's marshy area where there's small birds and other things that are being hunted. Anyway,
that's good.
So barrier islands along the coast. Think of things like that.
Okay.
Like the Outer Banks in North Carolina.
I have never hunted it, but I mean, it seems like it would be interesting. But the problem with that is, I think you look at the geography. Like, if you're, what's gonna funnel birds out to that part of the
It's
land?
people go
Nothing.
there because you can drive on the beach, so
Okay.
they'll drive and they'll spot falcons and they'll throw a pigeon
Right.
out in the
So for
harness.
peregrines, yeah, for peregrines is a whole nother thing, right? Because peregrines, like I said, they have no problems migrating off the coast, a number of miles and covering large bodies of water. And if there's a south or southeast wind, it pushes them back on land and kind of holds them up.
So I
And even
guess
in
the
these
idea
tournaments,
is there you
so
can
it's
cover ground,
yeah,
by driving.
yeah.
But people here haven't been terribly successful. I think we issue like 5 permits a year to trap falcons, and we're lucky if 2 or 3 people catch birds.
They're not easy. It's not easy anywhere really. The peregrines, it seems to be more of being the right time.
It seems like that, yeah. When I was with you, Paul, that one time you brought me down, you said, "Let's go. I got my permit. Come. If you want to come, I could use some
Yeah,
help." And we went, and it was so weird because I didn't even really know what was going on. I didn't know the weather. I didn't know the wind. I didn't know anything. But I just remember, I mean, how many? We must have saw 50 peregrines that day, at least.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
like more than half of them were like specks up above us, just cruising, and then all the ones that were lower, you could clearly tell that their body language, that they were hunting, they were trying to feed. And it seemed like and this is like with merlins as well, that I've noticed is when you're trapping them, they come down, like in the morning is kind of hot, right? I find that the morning's not as hot as the evening in terms of like them coming in. And it's like a lull, like from like 1 to 2 to 3, and then at like 4 until dark. It's like that's like the money hour when they're
Yeah,
like,
Merlins are an afternoon thing. I mean, I would
yeah,
recommend. And so, I mean, you can catch them randomly at any time, but really, generally the best times, if I was just going to have to bet on it, would be, the end of the day. Um,
yeah,
through 3 to 6 o'clock, that time of year. Yeah, it's just the way they are. I mean, I haven't found a pattern with peregrines yet that's consistent enough as far as time of day. I noticed that the birds I see in the morning, I have a hard time trapping, and I've had better luck trapping peregrines after lunch. I don't know why. Maybe it's just, it is what it is. But
yeah,
um, and then you can just see, you might not see anything, and then all of a sudden the peregrine comes out of nowhere and just barrels into your setup. So,
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
if it's on a heavy migration day, you'll see multiple peregrines and they pay zero attention to you,
yeah.
and they're just going to keep on migrating. It's interesting. You could do even with red-tailed hawks when you're ridge trapping and you're in a good spot where you're seeing multiple birds, and some don't want to do, no matter what, they don't care. They're focused to migrate and get some space, just cover some ground. I mean, they just don't even bat an eye looking at your bait. Uh,
Which is
Paul,
frustrating.
yeah.
Paul, I've got a question about the goshawks and ridge trapping. Are you seeing
Okay.
these goshawks before they hit the pigeon, or
Sometimes.
are they ambushing? So sometimes you're seeing them soaring,
Yeah.
but sometimes they're just working the trees.
Right. Sometimes they're usually, I would say, for the most part, they're coming up from low, and they're just gonna clear your line of sight. They're hunting above the treetops. All of a sudden, you see a bird, and you're rushing to flap that pigeon and let them in. I have seen them soar and just kind of like circle around and soar, and I've never caught one of them doing that. They've ignored me.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, it's the ones that are actively like flying over, kind of hugging the ridge, and then all of a sudden they're there, and then you're flipping, and then they come in. It's like an instant reaction.
Who knows how
Typical.
many you miss?
What's that?
Yeah.
Who knows how many of them you missed that you never knew were there?
Oh, oh, I know how many I missed that I knew were there, and every time it sucks.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest with you, they're very aggressive when they do see them. If I see them, I think I have a good chance to get them to come into the setup.
And
Yeah.
That's
how about
interesting.
trapping sharpshins?
What? Yeah. What about that? It's
So
interesting.
I'm I've seen them soaring in the mountains on migration
Okay.
routes, but you're trapping sharpshins at the beach if you're trapping those, right?
I'll get them at the ridge too, though I'm not usually set up unless I'm, sometimes I'll set up a mist net and some small birds if I want to try to trap a merlin there. But yeah, I'll get them on the ridge too. Generally earlier in the season, at end of September to middle of October. It's good sharpshin time, and they love to buzz. They love to come in to set up. They buzz our pigeons. I've had them grab the pigeon. Yeah, it's hilarious. It's great. But generally, if I was going to trap a sharpshin hawk, it would be that time of year, right? End of September, early October, and I would have a small bird set up, like starling or even a dove with a dogaza mist net if you have it, or yeah, and just get them to come in when they're migrating. They're quick, but you see them. You can
So you would go to the ridge to trap a sharpie?
if I had to, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but at the
I mean,
beach, I feel like you
you
see
catch them
more
there.
at the
I
beach.
catch a ton of them at the beach,
Yeah.
but I
All
don't feel
over
like
the place.
getting my stuff all set up and go there. I can just go to my ridge spot, which is closer, and just try to catch one there if I had to. But yeah, at the beach, where we go, and there's lots of them. But there's some spots. There's another spot I go on the beach where I don't see many sharpshin hawks. For whatever reason, it's merlins, kestrels, and peregrines primarily. Not as many sharpshin hawks on that spot. It all depends on the terrain. A lot of times, I think I'm not going to give away my exact spots.
We need GPS.
No,
coordinates.
no, and it's not for anything other than the fact that it's so important to me that I just when I go there, I want to be. I don't
Alone.
want to be crowded. Yes, yeah.
Just generally, what are you looking for sharpshins versus long wings?
You're looking for rounded wings and a long tail that's
no,
flat.
Is that it? How do you tell the difference between a Cooper's hawk and a sharpshin? No.
no. So you mean as far as where to trap them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like for me, yeah, I can only compare what I see on the beaches, the Merlins. I'm only there really. I mean, like you said, there's lots of sharpshoots that mix in. So I don't know. I've never really thought about where to target. Sharpshoots are almost like a bycatch for me. When I go, if I want to go band like a bunch of sharpshoots and like on a nice cool September day, I'm going to go to the ridge. I don't know why. I just figured I'll go there and I bring my dove and mist nets and even the pigeon. So if we're going for band, early season, most of the birds we band are sharpshoots, and I'll lure them in with a pigeon, and then switch off to the dove, and they'll hit the mist net, and then we catch them that way. Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, it's just down on the beaches too. I know the banders do a pretty good number of sharpshoots down there as well.
Well, I think we covered a lot of it. Unless Paul, you have something else you want to?
No, I mean, listen, there's all different ways to trap. I would say, if you're not sure where to start, I'm sure there's falconers area that does have done some trapping, but even if not, don't be afraid to like pioneer your own spot. Whoever hasn't done beach trapping in your area, someone's got to be the first, right? I know there's a popular ridge in New York that almost nobody had trapped up there at some point, and now it's and you catch one. The first place I caught a goshawk, I don't know anybody who's ever trapped on that spot ever. It's the same spots on the beach. I have a good friend up in Connecticut, and he goes to Rhode Island, and he found a nice spot, and he's caught himself merlins at that spot. No one's ever trapped for falconry there ever before, right? He went out and found a spot. He's trapped peregrines there as a bycatch, not to keep, but so yeah, just basic. Just give it a shot, and there's nothing more than just putting in the time. It may not be that one day, but I mean, you're not always going to see something every single day. You might have to come back on a couple different days or days with different weather just to make sure that it's good or it's not good.
Yeah.
But,
Makes it tough if you don't live near a ridge or the beach.
yeah, it is. It is. But you know what? I have plenty of friends in the southern part of New Jersey that do very well setting up stationary trapping sites that are not even that are not on ridges or on the beach, right? They're just in a field, right? They're in a agricultural plowed field and they set up there because it's during migration season. There's a lot of immature birds down, and you're on the East Coast, let's say, so there are birds migrating. You put a pigeon on a string in the middle of a wide open field.
Yeah.
You're going to get some migratory bird to come in. And I know people do it in the Midwest, like Mississippi Flyway, and other areas where they just get out in the open, put a pigeon on a string out there, and a bow net, and you can catch stuff. So it's not everything has to be done road trapping. So I know Bob and another couple guys down in South Jersey will hit a field because they can, and it's there, and why not, right?
Yeah, why
Yeah.
not?
You'll save money on
Yeah.
gas.
That's like I've capped in my backyard. I set up a bow net in my backyard. I'm an hour and a half away from a beach, and I mean there are some mountains nearby. On a good day, the dove out there. I mean a pigeon out there, because there's just migratory bird. There's migrating passes red tails around, and catch them that way. So
That's
I've-
good. That's good
I've got
advice.
red tails and Cooper's hawks in my yard, just in the middle of
Right.
a
You see them-
neighborhood.
yeah. I don't know if you noticed it down by you, but on a good, cool, breezy day, even if I'm at my son's football game or something, I can look up in the skies and I'm not on a ridge.
Just set up that pigeon right on the field, right on the sideline.
No, but you'll see birds. You'll see more birds on those windy days, and you'll see birds that are moving. And you don't necessarily need to be on a ridge to have a chance at catching these birds that are migrating.
That's good advice. It's
Yeah,
really good
so-
advice.
Yeah, that is. And if you want to have a weird encounter with a person, with a stranger, just throw a trap out, and they'll show up.
Yeah, there you go. You're feeling lonely.
There was a
you just wanna-
falconer in New Jersey that got in a serious car accident road trapping. So be careful
Yeah.
where you road trap. If I'm not mistaken, he lost his life doing that. So
Jeez.
yeah, it's there is some hazards with road trapping.
I've driven off the road multiple times trying to identify birds. But I never.
No, it is dangerous, and in some places it's the best way to trap, and probably a majority of the middle of the country it probably is. But
It just never ceases to amaze me that there's nobody around. Everything's cool. You throw the trap out, and then suddenly somebody shows up.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, even with your bird, man. You look at a field. This field looks good to start. You look around. There's nobody around. You get out, cut the dogs loose, take 2 steps in the field, and like 10 random people just walk out of they come out of the ground and they're just wandering around doing nothing, just calling the cops and just yelling, and it's just like it's like clockwork.
Oh, it's the life of a falconer.
Yeah, literally.
Well, thank you, Paul.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you very much, Paul. Go to sleep. Get some sleep.
It's not that late. I'll be up.
Get some sleep.
All
No,
right,
thank you. We
gentlemen.
really appreciate you coming on, man. We really appreciate you coming on. I think that was a lot of good advice for our.
Listen, if I don't know, people, well, yeah. Any other questions, just let me know. AC, we'd love to talk again at any other point. But you guys got something pretty cool going on with this podcast. It sounds like I think we take it for granted when we live, eat, and breathe this stuff, but not everybody has other falconers that they can kind of converse with, share this information with, and talk about. Yeah, that's cool.
We appreciate it. Yeah, thank you for coming on. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.